wet and challenging evening. I'm Rick Norman. I'm the president of VCPORA. VCPORA was started in the 20s, incorporated in 1939. So we are 78 years old and young. Oh, thank you. We're here tonight to talk about a very exciting and difficult issue of short-term rentals. This has been affecting the quarter for years. We now have some policies to work with. We're here to learn about the policies and what each of us individually can do to help the city enforce the policies. I have a lot of people to thank for this evening. Annie Irvin, can you come say a few words? Annie is the director of Beauregard Kai's house, and she's our hostess tonight.
I'll be quick. Thank you, everybody, for braving the terrible weather. It's a very important conversation and really important part of the quality of life of living and working in the French Quarter. So I appreciate everybody being here, and we're thrilled to work with VCPORA once again. Thanks.
Great big thanks to our Quality of Life Action Committee co-chairs, Jane and Lisa. Jane and Lisa, can you hear me? Okay. This forum is about how short-term rentals affect the French Quarter. And I'd like to introduce Jane, who spearheaded our action committee.
And I'm going to be short too. I'm glad you guys made it. Sorry for the standing room, but we're really happy you're here. Most of you got these cards. It's about the Quality of Life Action Committee. Our priorities are on there, the issues that we're working on. We would love to have you join us. We're about, I think, 7 people right now, and we sure could use some more. So if you like this meeting and you want more things like that, please join us.
Another thanks and a lot of debt goes to Brian Furness, who for 5 years led the citywide short-term rental committee that resulted in the legislation that we're going to talk about. And thank you, Commander Gernon, for coming out tonight. I feel safe under your protection. Thank you for being here. I'd also like to thank Bob Sims. He heads our French Quarter Little Blue Card Task Force. He's a volunteer. He's there 7 days a week. Now I would like to introduce our hardworking, very effective executive director, Meg Lusto. She's going to talk about what VCPORA and the French Quarter, the Quality of Life Action Committee has put together tonight. And this is
Well, I want to echo everybody's appreciation for those of you who braved the horrible weather to come out here. I think the staff, including I want to introduce Jennifer, our assistant director, who is doing Facebook Live. So for those people who didn't brave the weather can still see this and it'll be recorded. And we have Craig Kramer here doing perhaps a more professional version of videoing the event. So this will all be available to people who weren't able to make it here tonight. For just a few minutes, I wanted to talk about a brief history of short-term rentals in the VCPORA, and I will try to make this brief. I did write this down, so I'll be reading it. I didn't want to forget anything important. Back in the late 1960s, tourism really took off in New Orleans. The quarter saw a boom in hotel construction and conversion. Preservationists saw the writing on the wall, realizing what would happen if the trend continued unabated, and preservationists were successful in convincing the city to change the zoning code to prohibit the creation or expansion of any short-term rentals. And short-term rentals, I should define, is anything that's just a nightly stay, a hotel, or a guest house, a B&B, and they can be legal. Our problem, of course, is with the illegal ones. So we say we're successful in changing the zoning code to create any more of them. And in 1969, an effective hotel prohibition was placed on this neighborhood. That decision benefited the French Quarter, of course, by protecting its housing stock and residential character, but it also spurred hotel construction in adjacent areas, notably the CBD and Warehouse District, which have seen a boom in the hotels in the past few years. Now, we have the illegal short-term rental industry that came on the scene. Decades ago, the rules for minimum rental stays were set in city code. Rentals with fewer than 30 days were prohibited in the city as a whole, and in the quarter that minimum was 60 days. The intent of the policy was to preclude the conversion of housing units into hotel rooms. Unfortunately, administration after administration failed to enforce this policy. For many years, the problem was mainly limited to the view correct. The vast majority of illegal short-term rentals were here in this neighborhood, and the damage they were doing was only truly felt by the immediate neighbors. VCPORA and VCPORA Citizens, and I should note that Susan Guillot, the president, is here, created the short-term rental committee to combat the problem and work for enforcement. But over the past 5 or so years, with the advent of Airbnb and other online short-term rental platforms, the problem has increased exponentially, and illegal short-term rentals started to spread up in neighborhoods all over the city. Suddenly, folks in Uptown, Lakeview, Carrollton, Mid-City, Broadmoor, New Orleans East, Faubourg St. John, and more were feeling the pressure and impact of the industry. The number of illegal short-term rentals in neighborhoods like Treme, Marion Garden District, which already had quite a few, mushroomed. What had been a localized problem became a citywide problem. As of last year, there were 4,300 listings in New Orleans on Airbnb alone. The silver lining of the spread of this plague on our neighborhoods was that the constituency claiming for enforcement also mushroomed. Suddenly there was widespread demand that the city enforce the rules. At about the same time this was happening, the industry in general, and Airbnb in particular, was coming under increasing pressure in cities around the world. Places like Paris, Barcelona, Venice, New York, San Francisco were watching their housing stock, particularly in the historic centers of town, be decimated and prices go up. City after city started putting tough new rules in place to manage, curb, or outright prohibit the industry. Elected officials in our city decided to pursue the legalization route. Working with Airbnb and other online platforms, the administration and city council came up with a policy that broadly legalized the practice and set a very low bar for entry into the market in order to encourage operators to register. The city council voted to legalize the industry on October 20th, 2016. What was the outcome? Our next speaker will tell you about the ins and outs of the new rules, but the biggest takeaway for us in the quarter was that we maintained the 47 years and counting prohibition on new short-term rentals in the neighborhood. Had short-term rentals been legalized here, we believe that the very future of the quarter as a neighborhood was on the line. So we're very pleased to have held that line. We realize that other neighborhoods are now subject to rules which allow the conversion of housing units into year-round hotels. And we continue to work with the short-term rental committee and neighborhoods and activists across the city to change those rules for the betterment of our neighborhoods. Before I introduce our next speaker, Jennifer Cecil, I want to be sure everyone knows her role in this new policy. She did not write the policy. She did not vote on it. She is responsible for managing the registration and the enforcement of the rules created by the mayor's office and the city council. If you do not like the policy, please do not take it out on Jen. What you can do, though, is ask those who did support the policy, some of whom are running for election this fall, re-election or election, to explain their reasons for doing so. Hold them accountable. Ask them if they vote the same way again. Ask them if they win the elections, will they revisit the law? Ask candidates who are running, who are new candidates, how they feel about this issue. Because short-term rentals are really a subset of a larger issue that has to do with the effects of mass tourism on our city's prioritization of bringing more and more visitors here without having a plan to manage the effects of all of them. What is our city government doing to ensure that New Orleans is, first and foremost, a place for New Orleanians? Where do the day-to-day needs of actual residents rate on the scale on the priority list? These are questions we need to be asking of the people who are running to represent us, running to make decisions that will affect all of us for years to come. But of course, tonight the focus is on short-term rentals. What role do you, the citizen, play, and what is the city's role? And with that, I'd like to introduce Jennifer Cecil, who is director of the city's one-stop shop for the Department of Safety and Permits, and will be telling us all about short-term rentals.
I'd like to ask someone who's in arm's reach to click for me if possible. So I don't want to spend a lot of time on background because I just took you through a really great history of how short-term rentals came to be in the recent past. I want to focus on some recent dates though, so you can understand where we are in the enforcement process. The legislation was signed by the mayor on December 7th, which resulted in us having about 2.5 months to staff up for short-term rentals, create position allocations with civil service, new hiring, and on March 13th, we began accepting applications from the public. On April 1st, the ordinances became effective, and that is the date from which we'll be seeing our fines commencing. It's also when we began issuing permits because the ordinances weren't in effect until then. On May 1st, we began enforcement on the ground and by mail to properties that had been long-time offenders, including properties within the French Quarter that we'd had on prior adjudication lists, And on May 1st, we also began hitting the streets in the French Quarter. There's a handout that will circulate that shows a sort of half-page looking flyer on it that we've been posting. If you see one of those, you know that our inspectors have been on the ground, but that's not the end-all be-all of you being aware of enforcement action occurring. On June 1st, at close of business, Pacific Standard Time, Airbnb will be in just a few minutes delisting properties that do not have a valid city registration. We've set up the technology to talk back and forth with their system, and so I'm very eager when I leave here to start looking at how that changes what's visible on the maps. I'm sure many of you saw Meg's invite that showed the maps of the French Quarter where Airbnb obviously had listings in areas where they are prohibited. And this is the evening where we expect all of that to end. Cat and mouse pad. Okay, there we go. Okay. So this is an overview of the things we're required to have in our licensing and application process as summarized from the law. But you can of course always view the actual law as it was passed by council at NOLA.gov/STR if you really like the primary source research. All short-term rental operators are required to apply for a permit from us. If they apply and they are located outside the VCE district in the French Quarter, they will not receive a permit from us. Permits are also clearly in the law regarded as privileges and not rights. That's why we did not, or why the legislators did not propose this as a type of occupational license, because occupational licenses have been regarded by courts as a right rather than a privilege, and we wanted to make sure that this was revocable by adjudication. In the process of applying for their permit, property owners are required to attest to several different items. Those items will be audited on an ongoing basis. Our goal is to do around 100 per month, which means it will take us a while to get through the 4,200 applications that have been filed. But with the amount of staff we've been able to dedicate to this, we would like to touch everyone over the course of a couple of years. The operators are required to post their short-term rental licenses on the facade of their property. They have to say what property it's for so that it's easy for neighbors to spot if this is actually for a property located somewhere else if they're walking by. And so that you can also have an idea of the occupancy limit. Now this information is also available at NOLA.gov. If you go to our one-stop app there, you can also see all the information on any license that has been issued. So if you're curious about, I wonder what kind of license those folks got, if you're outside of the border, you have friends and family outside the border, you'll be able to see how many people are allowed there and whether they're allowed to be a temporary or a commercial or an accessory operator. The validity of the permits is not automatically renewed. It requires every applicant to reapply every year. Again, with this being a privilege that they have to resubstantiate all of the attestations that they made the prior year. And the legislation also divided this into 3 types of license. In the French Quarter, we should not have any accessory or temporary licenses at all. Only commercial licenses can be issued in the Bucharest Entertainment District. So we should not have any type A or type T license, and that is really the most relevant penalty most relevant penalty trigger on here for the French Quarter. Our penalties include daily fines. Now, as we prepared for daily fines, we had a meeting with a particular property manager that has 97 units in their property, about 40 of which were listed on VRBO recently. And we explained to them, I think this was Tuesday, that Each listing is a violation of 6 separate sections of code. Each penalty is worth up to $500 a day. So they could be looking at a fine of $3,000 per day per unit, which has resulted in them amending their leases, sending cease and desist letters to all of their tenants, and submitting an action plan as of this afternoon on how they will own the monitoring and delisting of all of their properties. So that's been some progress. Of course, the goal is compliance rather than penalizing folks, so it'd be much better for all of us if no one ever tried to do the wrong thing. But we appreciate the cooperation of good actors. If those fines are not paid, they turn into liens on the property. So any fine that's not paid, it turns into a lien. When you go to pay your property tax, automatically those fees are applied to the lien, and so you become delinquent in your property tax, which can make your property eligible for a auction for non-payment of taxes, and the city could sell it out from under you. So we're hoping that will motivate a lot of folks to take action. However, if that's not the case, they'll go on and completely revoke the permit. Our goal is not to send a bunch of people out as visitors to town into situations where they are without power, but the discontinuance of electric service is a reality, just because that can have major impacts related to folks burning candles or trying to start fires. We don't want to jump to that, but that is ultimately the final remedy that we have. And we hope to, prior to disconnecting electrical service, cooperate with any platforms we're aware that the property's been listed on, so that we can coordinate the cancellation of bookings and people don't show up to attempt to inhabit a property without electricity. I've got some really dense slides coming up. I think you'll probably be more interested in the types of enforcement, but I did want to make you aware there are 2 types of registration going on. The registration where folks come in to our department on the 7th floor of City Hall, they fill out the paperwork in front of us, and we review them in person. And there's also a pass-through registration that has been set up through Airbnb. What that does is it establishes the connection necessary for Airbnb to delist properties in a few minutes, which I'm very excited about. That allows them to send the basic contact and location information with the consent of the property owner to us. Anything that's not been consented to sharing with us is automatically going to be delisted, as well as anything that we have denied. So we expect to see a big change very shortly. So you have an idea of what those processes look like. They're pretty similar. But this is how it works on pass-through registration. I see some folks taking photos, so if you want to steal a photo of the slide, you can.
Can we get a copy of this on VCPORA's website?
Sure. And then the process for individual registration just changes the order in which different parts of it are complete, but all the same pieces are completed. But when it comes to our enforcement, we've got 4 kinds of enforcement that emphasize these standards. That they must have a valid permit. That's not going to happen in the French Quarter, so that's a really easy automatic ding. And it's stated so many times in the ordinance, we're able to get it up to 6 separate penalties when a property lists in court. They're limited to a single party of guests. This is something that's going to be difficult for us to prove in adjudication, but we have a process in place to subpoena listing and booking information from the platforms when we have a report that something is being rented out to multiple parties at once. Use of short-term rentals for social events and parties is prohibited. So if there are loud ruckus parties going on, or people decide, well, I've got my short-term rental license, I'm going to host a wedding and a giant reception here, that is in fact not allowed. It is a violation of the terms of the license, and we can adjudicate and revoke a license for actions like that. They may not generate noise, vibration, glare, odors, or other effects that unreasonably interfere with any person's enjoyment of his or her residence. Now that is something that we're going to rely a whole lot on folks in neighborhoods to help us document and become aware of. Because you'll see in our staffing plan, we've got about 4 inspectors, and they can't be everywhere at once. But with the nature of a disruption being what it is, it lasts for a couple of hours, or you got home at the tail end of it, if you can grab any information, a short video or a photo, we can add that to our adjudication file to strengthen our case. There must be an in-town property manager. It's unlawful to operate short-term rentals outdoors in buses or RVs or tents. One of our first applications came from someone with a composting toilet was his bathroom and was very upset that we could not license his tent. Or the other portion of the slot that he wanted to rent out as a bring your own tent area. It must appear outwardly residential. They can't put up commercial signage. The only exception to that being the required permit posted. And so let's look at the types of enforcement we're doing.
Before you do that, you skipped one item on this
I did?
slide. Short-term rental of establishment cannot adversely affect the residential character of the neighborhood.
Yes,
What are the criteria?
that is decided by an adjudication officer during an adjudication hearing. So for us, that means that my inspectors, when they respond to a complaint like that, they're going to be looking for anything such as trash, anything excessive in terms of noise, where they can record on their phone. I'm at the corner of the block, the house is 4 houses in, I can hear loud music, or there's litter that's been strewn all in front of the home. Ultimately, though, it's the hearing officer's determination of whether or not that interferes. And when I go over the handout that they passed out, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about determining the unreasonableness by attending an adjudication for properties that you receive complaints on yourself, which is something we are very open to. Because there's nothing more powerful than the neighbor explaining to the adjudication officer what exactly it is that you've been experiencing that can't be straight up photographed, it can't be summarized in the narrative.
These criteria are going to be published so that neighbors can have access to them.
So like I said, each hearing is going to be the hearing officer's determination. So this is the law as it's published. It will be the determination of the hearing officer in the hearing to determine, did that unreasonably interfere with your enjoyment of your residence? So I'm sorry, we've got 4 types of enforcement I want to cover real quick, and then when I wrap up, I want to take questions, if that's cool. Okay, great. If you would, this is the reporting-based enforcement, so the listing platforms submitted in the last 48 hours, including the ones that don't have a pass-through registration with us. We've got the Expedia company's reports, so that's VRBO, HomeAway, and then we've got the Airbnb reports as well that have been sent to us to allow us to search out the 90-day listers, people who have extended past the maximum number of nights they can rent with a temporary permit. This listing, we're working on geocoding to see if we can use it to additionally detect anything in the quarter that should not be listed at all. Then if we move on to the next. We've got complaint-based enforcement. So far, this has been our biggest bringer in of information. This is complaints that are brought to us by citizens who are living next to properties that prohibit them from enjoying their residence. These come in through the email address str@nola.gov. They can come in anonymously if you're afraid of retaliation for some reason, through a web form at nola.gov/str. There's a link to it on the front page. It's also available on the main safety permits page. And then there's the phone calls that you can call in, leave a message while something's going on. If it's inconvenient to get to a computer, you can call 504-658-7144. Could you repeat that? 504-658-7144.
And where does that get us?
That will, in the event that we don't have anyone in the office, give you a voicemail. Otherwise, we will get the opportunity to speak to one of our investigators or office staff. You're gonna notice on this thing that I gave to Nate to pass out, there's this little dotted line section in the corner. If you like, you're welcome to cut it out and place that somewhere convenient for you to get to. We've also got web-based enforcement, which is where we're trolling websites to scrape information, to attempt to geolocate addresses, to perform better enforcement, because we know that a lot of the listings don't have an address in there. So, since most of the shots are interior shots and we're not necessarily familiar with every location, trying to scrape any geocoded data off of the websites through the buffering and permutations they're doing through the Google API is not only a fun puzzle to solve, but hopefully going to help us find all of the folks that are trying to list in squirrely ways once Airbnb starts pulling them down. And then finally, proactive field enforcement. You may have seen Antonio, Marquez, and Bill out in the corridor passing. They've been posting the little blue half sheets of field warnings on properties when we are in the field, when we encounter something like, hey, I see there's a lockbox and excessive trash, or something like that. We will take a photograph of the violation. We will address the property on the notice and check the appropriate boxes for the types of violations. We'll time and date it, we'll photograph it, post it on the building, and then we return to the office. We send a formal written notice to the property owner of record to inform them of the violation and the fact that even if it's a tenant of theirs doing this, ultimately as a zoning violation, the property owner has the liability that's added to the property owner's taxes. But don't take the absence of one of those blue half sheets, which are about to turn pink now that we've hit the listing season. Don't take the absence of that as meaning that we weren't there. People, well, in today's weather, they could actually wash off the building because we don't want to trash up properties any more than they already are. We're using painter's tape, which can sometimes come off, but we don't want to yank off paint with these. People will pull them off when they get home, or they could feasibly blow away. That's why we're still going ahead and noticing the property owner of record, because that's the first step toward adjudication. This is what the staffing looks like. So it's likely if you call that number that you're going to get these 3 people first. One of our analysts that do the permit reviews and intakes, or the office assistant. But really, anybody's fair game if they're in the office. They have to answer the phone. All phone calls have to be replied to within 2 days. This is what our citations look like right now. Since May 1st, 122 citations have been issued in the French Quarter. And these will be the first ones going to adjudication because there was never any expectation once the law was passed that it would be allowed in the French Quarter. You'll see a couple of them are right here on the edge of the VCE. That's kind of a product of how the icons were distributed, and also us notifying a couple of actors in the VCE that they do need to obtain a permit in order to operate.
Are those citations the ones that are posted on the buildings?
It's a mix of both. Remember those blue ones that are posted on the buildings? You may see that if we're out there in person, but we may also send a letter that you don't see. For instance, the letter to someone in the VCE, like Royal Sonesta, might say, hey, if you're going to list on a website, here's what you have to do. I feel like I'm making this worse. I'm not loud enough about this?
Yeah.
Great, sorry.
So can we find out if our neighbor's been posted or at least sent a letter? If they're,
Yes, you can actually see that by going to NOLA.gov/OneStop. You can search the address in the upper right. It'll show you all the permits and violations issued for that. You go to NOLA.gov/OneStop. There's a link for searching and applying online, and you'll see everything associated with that property. That'll include any BCC violations from Brian Block's crew over at the commission.
that one number one or O-N-E?
ONESTOP, one stop. Thank you. As for that New Gray Entertainment District, we have 9 licenses in there. Those are commercial licenses that are being issued to portions of buildings that have, that fall within the zoning where it is allowed. So that is all the short-term rentals you would see in the French Quarter, with this horrible caveat on the next slide, which is that there are a lot of hotels, motels, and B&Bs as a product of history and licensing. So we have responded to complaints about these green dots. The blue dots that you see on this map are short-term rentals. You'll notice there are none in the quarter. But these green dots are hotels, motels, and licensed B&Bs that already existed prior to the legislation going into effect. So when we arrived at Bougainvillea House, I'm really sorry to Mrs. Khan, it turned out that that was our mistake. She's actually got a licensed bed and breakfast, but she came in and helped us straighten that out and improve what we were doing. Now this map, you'll notice, is different than the map that's posted on the Advocate website. The Advocate website and I think maybe the Lens are working on scraping data off of our permit or license summary pages, which has led to some unreliable data. So to give you a primary source information that is not interpreted or kind of mutated, it's coming off the actual data from what we issued and not messed around with or polished by those sites. We will be putting this up on our short-term rental page as well. I'm working with the IT team and expect it just to be a couple of days before they're able to post it. But we hope this will be a resource for people visiting New Orleans to know where it is actually legit to stay. I really apologize for any confusion anybody found over the 1201 North Rampart listing that the Advocate had up. They accidentally put it on North Rampart and it was for South Rampart. And we're working with them on a case-by-case basis to try to help them improve the quality of what they're posting online. So for citizen reporting, which is really the point of this, what can you do? Because it is hard for you to put up with this and for us to be everywhere at once. Can I borrow your sheet again? I'd like, or actually, you know what, I'll put it up on the screen real quick. I'd like to go over some tips here that will help us all be effective and armed as we move forward. And okay, you ready to go? I think that's easy. We'll make it back. You've done great. So, when you're reporting short-term rental violations, we're asking you to please be specific. If it's possible, provide an address. One of the best things that I've gotten from VCPORA is they have figured out the addresses on properties that I had no hope of guessing based on the interiors. So your folks up in the main office are doing a really helpful service to all of New Orleans, but also their membership. So if it's possible, try to provide an address. That's going to be easiest on the nuisances, I know. Include any dates or times you are aware of violations taking place. So if you see large groups coming and going 2 days in a row, feel free to submit, okay, on this date this happened, this date that happened. It was around 3 p.m. one day, it was at 7 p.m. another day. But if you've got chronic misbehaviors, any pattern to the activity will help us make sure that we assign our investigators to be present when it's most likely to occur again, which will, in addition to any documentation you can give us, help us document for the hearings that we hold on the property. If you can describe the nature of the violation in detail. Now, of course, for a lot of the quarter, it's just that it's happening at all. You don't have to say much there. But if it is related to affecting your quality of life, if it's related to noise or odors or, I don't know, banging, whatever may be disturbing, please provide that in detail. If you would like to receive follow-up, I know some people want to be anonymous, right? That's why the web form is good if you don't want your name associated with it. But if you do want to be followed up with, please note that in the description of the violation. There are fields on the web form to fill in your contact information, and if you're reporting by email or phone and you'd like to be called back or emailed back, please include that in the message. And then if you're willing to attend any resulting adjudication, please state this when you report it. I understand work may be a factor. We have jobs, things to do, but if you would like to try, if you want to know when the hearing is happening, please let us know that so that we can keep you informed. So here I go scrolling down. I've got some examples of reports that what we found very helpful about them for the actions we've already moved forward with. All right. As I said, this is a little cutout of an email. We got this request, or this information from VCPORA. It's in the French Quarter. They didn't have anything else about being disruptive. It's just like, hey, here's a property listed in the French Quarter. And I got a link to it. What that link will allow me to do is issue a subpoena to Airbnb. They do have by law 3 weeks to get back to respond to that subpoena, so it could be a longer adjudication process if they take all 21 days. But that lets me get the information that I need about when it's been booked, how long it's been booked, and who the actual people posting are, which is helpful in adjudications when a property owner comes in and says, I had no idea. I'm like, oh, well, look, here's your name, or here's your son's name on the property listings. This is an example of the types of interference with the property. It doesn't take a lot of words to be clear, but here it was written that 629 Burgundy routinely has a lockbox on the gate. There are 2 buildings on the property, maybe multiple STRs. This is a whole house rental with an absent owner. This one's a whole house rental with bachelor party tenants paying non-friends common fence because there's no first floor bathroom. We also got a really great photo of someone climbing up a ladder into an attic, but that wasn't in the French Quarter. But it's all seriousness helps us figure out what we're looking for. Because we may have a fraudulent posting, we might have a fraudulent license number, type of license might be misrepresented on the websites, and it gives us more ammunition so that that fine isn't just $500. That fine can be as many counts as we can put against a person if they're truly disrupting a neighborhood. Now here's my little note on these things that you've seen stuck to doors. If we see it in the field, you might see it stuck to a door. If you don't see it, that does not mean we're not dealing with it. We may be going straight to sending, or we may have already sent notices to the property owner, and they're too far in the process to keep receiving warnings in the field. But you can follow up with us. And finally, the picture at the bottom will show you an example of something very, very helpful on Burgundy Street that we can't wait to use in hearing.
Good, because I sent you the photo. Here it is on the phone. It's a really clear picture. That was on the 29th that I took that picture.
The photo issues documenting things like, oh, look, clearly these guys that's interfering with my reasonable enjoyment of my property because I've got extra trash. It's not in a container. It's out there. It's going to cause smells. It's going to make a rat harborage. We already have enough problems like that around here. People out on the sidewalk. The only thing that could make it any more perfect would be an audio file of people being ruckus, but
I got those too.
email them. Please. But this is exactly what we're looking for, is whatever you are able to catch. Also, it's all about your level of comfort. I don't want anybody to go out and act like the police. I don't want you to go, I don't even instruct my inspectors to go and confront someone who appears to be in a state that would make it unsafe for them to talk to them because they are not post-certified officers. They are more on the level of like parking control enforcement in terms of, or a zoning inspector in terms of not being armed and able to safely de-escalate belligerent situations. So please don't put your safety ever at risk in approaching anyone, but if you are able, just slightly snap a photo. And anytime you can also, help us identify which property it is. That's a huge help to us having a case we need in front of an administrative hearing officer. So this is what I suggested. If you need to keep in touch with us, you want to have it stuck in your wallet or on your fridge, those are the ways to contact us. Online on the web form is the most anonymous way. Our phone will probably, unless you leave your number, not know where you call from because of the number of calls that come in. So that can be anonymous for the most part as well, if you're not comfortable giving your name. So this is my hope is that we can do this together and have it a short-term rental free in terms of these kind that are not allowed, non-VCE portion of the French Quarter. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cecil. We're going to take questions at the end. We have one more speaker. Will you stay around?
I will stay around. I'm just going to shut this off so there's not in his eyes.
We do have one more speaker. Our next speaker is Ryan McCabe. He's an attorney with the Steeg law firm, S-T-E-E-G, and he has litigated the issues involved in condominium documentation, bylaws that affect condominium owners renting out their condominiums and what other residents can do about it.
Good evening. As I was just introduced, I'm a partner at Steeg Law Firm. I first began my involvement with short-term rentals about 3 years ago when, pardon me, thank you, when a condominium association in the French Quarter engaged my firm to put an end to a particularly egregious offender who had bachelor parties in one of his condos pretty much every weekend, drunk people, people getting into fist fights with residents. So what we did, yeah, it happened. What we did, fortunately, the condominium documents for that condominium prohibited short-term rentals. They also prohibited anything that was against the CZO at that time. And back then, as many of you may recall, the CZO and municipal code both prohibited short-term rentals in the French Quarter, but there was an inability to enforce that on the city's behalf. So my firm was engaged to basically take matters into the association's own hands. So what we did was we filed an injunction action against the owner of the property, and we ended up getting an injunction. We ended up getting the owner of the unit held in contempt because he repeatedly violated the injunction. And as an aside, Title 14 of the revised statutes, the criminal code, allows for not only monetary fines, but jail time if you violate an injunction. We asked the judge to put the owner in jail for that violation, but the judge declined to do so. But in any event, what we also got was the condominium association's documents included a damages provision, and it said, if you violate our short-term rental prohibition, then you have to forfeit all of your short-term rental revenues to the association as damages. And we got the judge to award us a $250,000 fine against the short-term rental operator. So that just went up to the Fourth Circuit, and the Fourth Circuit affirmed like 95% of the judgment, which is good, and that was just a few weeks ago. My role in the short-term rental universe is probably going to be limited now in the French Quarter. I've got other condominium associations outside of the quarter that I'm working with on prohibiting and curtailing short-term rentals. But hopefully with the new regulations in place and the enforcement mechanisms that we all just heard about, hopefully it'll stop the French French Quarter, and y'all will never need to call me. Assuming that doesn't happen, there is a body of, and I'm going to be optimistic and say I bet it will. But assuming it doesn't happen for some reason, there is a body of law out there. There are some cases that give, for instance, a condominium association standing to, and standing means like, are you the right person to be complaining in court about this particular issue? There's some law out there that allows a condominium association to basically enforce, through the court system, prohibition, zoning ordinance, etc., in the event that the city's not doing it itself. And that was one of the additional bases that we relied upon in that particular case, and in other cases I've dealt with. So far, we've been successful in stopping short-term rentals. Even that most egregious violator is no longer doing it. I think he learned his lesson from the fine. But that's where we are with things, and we can still file injunctions outside of the French Quarter. We can still file injunctions inside the French Quarter if, on behalf of the condominium association, for instance. But my advice to anybody in this room, if you're facing a short-term rental issue, is to exhaust your remedies with the city, exhaust the city's processes and their framework for enforcement, because lawyers cost money and nobody likes to pay lawyers. And calling the city and complaining, that's free. So do that, and if all else fails, you can call me or someone similar. But the point of me being here today is to let you know that even if the city's new system fails for some reason, you do have private options that you can avail yourself of.
Thank you. I'd like to call back Ms. Cecil and Mr. Ryan for addressing your questions and concerns.
I have the same feeling, most of these are aimed at me. I'm going to start with the teal shirt. I'm going to try to work left to right. Up against
So I got it a little bit late. You might have already defined this. What defines a short term? 1 week, 2 weeks, 6 weeks?
So for short-term rental licensing, anything less than 30 days is considered a short term. However, there are multiple ways to be valid as a short-term time period. One is through the short-term rental licensing. You can also rent for a short term, 30 days or less, as a bed and breakfast, a hotel, or a motel.
Is that citywide?
Yes.
So in the French Quarter, can I rent to a movie studio for 30 days?
Only at the VCE if you have a commercial permit.
So what would be the minimum amount of time I could rent to a movie studio?
Or if you're a bed and breakfast.
I have an apartment that the movie company wants for 30 days.
You would have to rent for longer than 30 days.
And what is that? What is that?
Longer than 30 days would be?
31.
Oh, 60 and 40.
So that does not change.
No, it's 60 and a quarter. I'm sorry. Megan's pulling me out. I'm just.
Well, thank you.
60 and a quarter.
Thank you for clearing that up. We heard
I'm so
this
sorry.
change.
Yeah, we heard that when the law changed, that it threw out all the old and put in this new.
61 days is legal.
Yeah,
In the French Quarter.
61 now.
That's correct. I'm sorry. That was my brain fart.
And who are the adjudication people?
The adjudication people, we have multiple contracts with licensed attorneys who are credentialed through the state as hearing officers. So we have a variety of people that could be the adjudication officer on a given day. They rotate through scheduling.
They are licensed attorneys?
Yes.
And so it's possible to have an attorney representing the adjudication?
Wait, who am I in the you there?
The person who has the violation.
Yes, and have an attorney with you, they cannot speak for you.
I'll be looking for you.
Yes, ma'am.
This is probably for both. On condominiums, you have your rules and regulations, 6-day rental. If you feel somebody is violating that, and they just say it's friends or family, and they're there for 10, 15, 3 weeks, and as association you ask for proof, and you're told you can't give that, I can't receive that. So if you report them, is there a way the city can go back and say, you've been reported, we want to see the lease? Or we want to see documentation to see if money has passed hands?
We cannot interpret the lease. We're not getting into the business of enforcing a private agreement. However, if it is being reported to us that someone is advertising at all as a short-term rental, and especially if you've got the download, you know which listing or which platform they're going through, we can subpoena that information and fine them for not being licensed and trying to operate.
Which it's in the French Quarter, so they wouldn't be licensed in the French
Right,
Quarter.
so then we could start, then we would be able to get them with the minimum 6 fines within the French Quarter plus any additional misuse of licenses or false representations.
Okay.
What the association can also do, and it's not as strong of a tool as the fines, but it can notice a hearing on condo docs and have the unit owner appear at the hearing and say, well, and the notice can say, well, show us cause why you shouldn't be fined under our condo docs for violation of our prohibition against short-term rentals if you have a prohibition.
Thank you.
In the Blackboard, ma'am?
Oh, this is for a condo association as well. Is there a specific language that you need to have in the condo document? Because ours just says no behavior that is against the law.
Well, most
Pretty much covers a lot.
most condo docs say that. The associate, my firm, I work with a real estate, my firm's a real estate firm. We represent a lot of associations throughout the quarter and uptown. And what we do in our condo docs, when we're creating new documents or working with an existing association with many old, outdated documents, we'll put in a specific prohibition against short-term rentals. Because, just as you saw the law change here, you also heard Meg say, when city council people are up for re-election, ask them whether they're going to support X, Y, or Z. So the law can change in a year or two, but it's easier if your association is dead set against short-term rentals, it's easier to have the specific prohibition in your condo docs saying, this association, rentals by unit owners under 60 days or 60 days or less are prohibited under our documents. Or 30 days, you can make it more restrictive. So you can include specific language. In the case that I mentioned, there was specific language, but as a backup, we also used the generic, you can't violate, the city's laws language.
And there are some national best practice language available that I've gotten from apartment associations and stuff for the legal documents too.
So let me ask you on that question then. If your docs that you have say 30 days in the city, and this is in the quarter, and the city says 60 days, we have to uphold what the city says and then change our docs to go from a 30-day like they used to be to a 60-day currently.
Well, actually, I think we're looking at the wrong side of the days. Like, there's a 60-day, there's a prohibition of under 60 days in the French Quarter.
Right.
The association, if it had the votes to do so, could say, we don't want you to rent anybody for under 90 days or under 6 months. Because if you say under 30 days, well, that's already taken care of by the city's ordinance. But you can make it more stringent if you want to promote more long-term residents in your condo.
Okay, fine.
So you don't think that language needs to be put into French Quarter Association docs because the law is there? Is that what you're saying?
No, I think it should be put in as belts and suspenders.
Okay, so my question is this. If it's the law and it's not in the docs written that way now, like no short-term rental under 60 days, do you need a majority vote, or can you, from the association, let's say half your association short-term rental, do you need to get a majority vote to put that in there, or can you put that in there because it's the law?
No. Any amendment to your condominium declaration or bylaws is going to have to follow the amendment procedure in there. And some have super majorities, and some have just straight majorities. It doesn't matter what the law is, but if you want to include it, you got to have the votes.
So we could say in our docs, you could do something illegal?
No, I mean, if your docs say there are short-term rent, I mean, you can short-term rent in XYZ condo, and the city's, ordinance says that you can't, then the city's ordinance trumps the inconsistent language. But if the city's ordinance went away, then your condo, you could
Still be
you
fine.
could
And
restore.
you were talking at it as a backup, if all else fails, you'd want that language in there.
Yeah, because if your ordinance is repealed in a year, and short-term rentals are back to being okay, or back to being less bad, because they were never okay, then, you'd want the protection of that language in your docs.
All right, we were going this side over, I'm trying to hit on next to the tan.
Yes, the illegal operators are not allowed to honor reservations previously taken, is that correct?
The illegal operators,
They're not allowed to claim that, well, they made this booking, 6 months ago or whatever.
It shuts down the
so it is intended to keep people from coming. Anybody still coming will be a violation. You will be hard pressed, though, for us to have legal grounds to come in and evict a tourist during their stay.
No, we're not talking about eviction, but you would penalize the
The property
operator.
owner. Yes, absolutely. All right, Denham?
My thing is, we have someone in our condo that knows he's doing this illegally. He knows it's been in bylaws since long, long ago that it was illegal. He brought a lawyer to our last meeting, and the lawyer even said he knew it was illegal. But he was still being pushed for it, and he didn't care.
I'm sure that he's been reporting to us.
He has. And the actual person even says he's just trying to do it responsibly.
Yeah, that isn't controversial, the fact that the law is what the law is, and so we're gonna start with you. You report it to us for us to adjudicate, and then we start to impose fines. Fines don't get paid, they become liens. Liens don't get paid, and he comes up for the electricity issue.
Well, first off, he doesn't even pay garbage and sewage and all. And we found that out just now when we had some work done on the whole condo property.
Hey, water and all?
No. Oh, trash pickup. But on top of it, it's like, I finally put a sign out on our patio that it's only available for guests, friends, and non-paying guests, because they come out there and, I mean, we're liable. And his lawyer for Airbnb said they would cover it.
That's great that helps me narrow down and know how to better address this, because I've been very successful so far in getting results from that attorney. So thank you for making it clear.
Call any one of us and we'll give you a heads up.
All right, the lady in black.
Okay. I have done, I don't know, maybe a dozen reports since I found out about your report of violation. I started sending the photos.
Thank you.
I have lots more from previous weekends, but I just sent in 2 more while I'm sitting here.
Okay.
That were much worse than this one that I sent on Monday. I'm gonna go home, I've got some audio, I'll send you that. I guess what I need is a timeline in my mind of when there's gonna be a hearing. And
first
once the hearing's done, when are we gonna get the electricity cut off? Because this guy's got it rented, months in advance.
So it is not ever going to be our first recourse to disconnect power because of the safety issues. You'll expect that our first batch of short-term rental hearings will be posted. If you all go to Lily Court, the website, NOLA.gov, safety permits. Lily McNee runs our adjudications bureau, and she posts her adjudication schedule the week in advance. You'll see there in the last week of June will be the first bad actors, almost all French Quarters folks that will be scheduled for hearing. The process is that we're required to provide written notice 15 days in advance of the hearing by certified mail to the property owner. We have to repost in person the notice of hearing 5 days or greater from the date of adjudication. Once the adjudication hearing takes place, by the end of that week, because they're Tuesdays or Wednesdays, either one, by the end of that week, see fines show up as a result of the adjudication. The fines, if they're not paid in 30 days, can then be recorded as a lien on the property tax.
And Jen, if I could just piggyback what you said, once Lily maybe starts issuing her dockets for administrative adjudication hearings on short-term rentals, we will make sure that those are posted on our website, on social media, and we'll send out emails. And we hope that a lot of you will come, especially for the properties that directly affected you.
Okay. But in terms of getting to the point where we cut off power, that's going to be something that we try to use deliberately for unsafe conditions initially and for repetitive bad actors. So to get the adjudication officers to agree to an order to terminate power, I would expect most of them to require it being the third hearing or more.
Well, I mean, repetitive, he's done it for 16 months, and I've documented every weekend that it's done. So I will continue to document. I'll start recording. I'll do anything I need to do to make this happen. I just want to be at that hearing.
Yes, ma'am. All right, and then go, you're the fellow, you're familiar.
I didn't get one. Thank you for the job that you guys and your whole offices down here doing. It's a tremendous undertaking. No one in the country's done it. You've done a great job. People in this room clearly, all you and your staff. A great round of applause and citywide with you as well. Just want to get some clarity. Someone touched on it. The hosts who were hosting in the French Quarter and they were operating illegally took down their listings prior to or on the April 1st ordinance date, or today, hopefully today, will go dark. Those pre-existing reservations that were on the books before, we have a city official on record saying that there will be a phasing out period and they will honor those reservations. No new reservations prior to that April 1. Is there some clarity?
So, in order for us to know whether or not a reservation was made prior to that, we have to take the complaint. We have to subpoena the records from the platform. And so the violation will be filed, the property owner will be noticed in order for us to then be able to get the information to determine the point at which a listing was made. So for all intents and purposes, it's just as drawn out of a tense process for the property owner to have to endure, but the final result could be that the hearing officer says, you know what, it is what it is, it was made before this went into effect.
The platform's not sharing that information.
We have to request the information on individual transactions. We get summary level information on total number of nights booked and time periods.
That would apply to prior listings in the French Quarter, though, would it? Because they would have been illegal at the time they were made. It's already been illegal.
So up until April 1st, while the law was silent to this point largely, I don't have it all in front of me right now, and I'm not going to be able, as a non-lawyer, to tell you an official determination. I understand what you're getting at, that there was a blanket prohibition, but I'm not going to be able off the cuff. I have to check with our legal department and how they're going to argue on our behalf. Yes, sir.
When you were designing your enforcement procedures, structure, and rules, did you, I assume that you looked at those cities that were ahead of us in this process? Were there particular cities that you followed in adopting your procedures?
examples that we were able to find were examples of what not to do because of very, very low compliance rates in those cities. It was estimated at the time the legislation was passed in the city planning report, there were between 4,000 and 5,000 short-term rentals operating in New Orleans. Right now, we have 4,200 applications, which blows a lot of cities out of the water. About half of them have been issued, just a little over half. Some were denied. I have a graphic on my computer, but I turned the projector off, of who fits into what slice of the pie. In terms of deciding the method of adjudication, we consider private adjudication, like what Chicago's doing, but that keeps landing in court with injunctions in place. And so what we're trying to do is do it in the way that we know works for the other types of violations that are upheld here in New Orleans. On the one hand, that means having lowered the barriers to entry and allowing for attestations of many things that we would much rather have copies of in person prior to the issuance of the license. But if we lower the barrier to entry, we then get a better data set of who is actually listing online so that we can go back, garner that information, and try enforcing that way through revocation. So what we tried to do in looking at Portland, at San Francisco, at Sacramento, at Miami, Honolulu, at Chicago, was figure out how to come up with new and creative ways to do it that might not work out, that weren't like, find a new way to fail, is what the mayor says sometimes. Like, don't do it the same way. Don't make the mistake you've seen somebody else make. Make your own new mistake. And we don't think that we've done that to this point, but we're trying to do it in a way that pays heed to all the places that have had difficulties getting people to come forward and register. All right, maybe.
Yeah, so the gentleman asked about like the movie thing, they wanted to rent for less than 60 days, so what if you did like a month-to-month lease, would that be legal since it's 30 days?
No.
So you can do, okay.
All right, gentleman in the black t-shirt.
Yes.
I know I'm starting to skip around, sorry, I just feel bad for this side.
Thank you. Could you convey to the city administration that it's not just a nuisance for us residents, it's an undue burden and strain on our police force? Because we have to call them, they have to come because of these repeat offenders. And if you could convey that is a strain that should not have to happen.
I will, and I'm sure that Commander Garden will assist me in conveying that.
Jen and I work together. Put it on the spot.
Gentleman in the green polo.
Regarding condominiums, should these prohibitions be recorded?
I always advise my clients to report any and all amendments to their documents. So anytime you amend your declaration, anytime you amend your bylaws in order for it to be enforceable as to third parties, in the event that that becomes an issue, then you need to have it recorded in the conveyance records while you're talking.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks to neglect the.
Sometimes we use the term Airbnb to mean one specific corporation. And sometimes we use it to mean anything you book on the internet,
Yes.
whatever. Several parts of my question. What is the relationship of the city to the Airbnb corporation? How are they committed to cooperate with the city? And what information is the city giving them and getting back from them? What cooperation do you have from all the other platforms that you can rent space on the internet? And what keeps them from just changing their name? Like Airbnb could become Internet B&B, and then it's not covered by some arrangement that the city has with Airbnb.
Okay. Our relationship with Airbnb in particular, not things like Airbnb, but Airbnb in particular, we are in a voluntary tax collection agreement by which they are required to remit to the city the additional dollar surcharge for short-term rentals that goes to the Neighborhood Housing Improvement Fund, as well as the 4% hotel motel tax and the 50 cent occupancy tax for every room. The city's relationship with all other online listing platforms does not include that, which means that anyone who is listing through those platforms is required to register their sales tax with the Bureau of Revenue independently. However, because we know who's being listed through Airbnb, and we have also had excellent cooperation from the Expedia companies to provide us with information on the properties that they are listed, or that they are listing, we are able to, for audit purposes and for tax collection purposes, share that information with our Bureau of Revenue so that they can pursue taxes on the nights and the bookings that are not going to be remitted as part of the voluntary collection agreement. Their major market shares right now are owned by Airbnb, VRBO, HomeAway, and I'm missing one. What? It's something close to Flippy. It's another. What? I know that three of them are owned by Expedia. The Expedia company's website structure was not initially set up for payment to occur through Expedia and a transaction monitored through Expedia the way that it is through Airbnb. So they're in the process of working through changes to their website because they would like to be able to offer voluntary collection for their properties and the convenience of their hosts. However, while they're still doing that, they have gone forward with, in good faith with us, sharing the information that Airbnb is also sharing about properties where there are listings and the number of nights listed both in the last 30 days and in the prior calendar year. So to that end, that takes care of a large share of popular locations. Now, the voluntary collection agreement is something that Airbnb could not just back out of unless it completely dissolved as a company. And that would have ramifications on all the hosts that have contracts with them to list their locations. These other things are things that we're receiving because we are really getting a reputation for being on the right foot starting out here, and people would like to make their first success story a city with our kind of name recognition. But it is possible that at any point Airbnb, or sorry, not Airbnb, VRBO, HomeAway, they could cease to provide us with documentation. At which point, we don't have an ordinance that regulates the platform, it only regulates the homeowners unless we enter into a voluntary collection agreement. And that's where things are, things go downhill, things can become weaker. And then all of those sites end up becoming like Craigslist is to us right now, where we have to manually monitor it and try to figure out what's where. Luckily, the popularity of Craigslist versus these other sites is much lower, and so it's manageable right now. But if these sites somehow, self-destructed, we'd be looking at a much heavier technology lift, and that's a time when we would probably end up trying to smartly engage consultants in operating to assist us in what would be a really difficult data mining procedure, much more so than what we have at the moment.
So,
Yeah.
I'd like to follow up on a question, just like this. It has to do with people who tell me that they're just having friends over, and they have an awful lot of friends who come every weekend for years at a time. I applaud the fact that this is not a property right that someone has with respect to operating short-term rental. That is a lower privilege. In other words, it's not a property right where you have to take someone's license away. Here, you don't have a license as a franchise.
Right.
So my question has to do with the adjudication process itself, which I understand would be under the Administrative Procedures Act. That acts against subpoenas.
Yes.
Would your office permit, say, the Bridgeport Citizens or VCPORA to act as a conduit for requesting a subpoena at one of these administrative proceedings if those of us who are here would not want to be involved in a neighborhood war with a neighbor? In other words, asking for information about how many people have been in your place.
Our subpoena power is going to be most effective if we can subpoena the information from a platform where we believe booking has occurred. In terms of subpoenaing the property owner directly, that is a power that we will have through the administrative hearing proceedings, but that is not one, like the platform subpoenas, it's our anticipation and working with the hearing officers that we've got, that we can present them with a bulk list of, we've got all of these, sign off on 20 of these now, so we can send them off to Airbnb. With the individual ones, they may wish to have a hearing, at which point we can, prior to signing off on the subpoena, at which point we can represent your complaint, or we can have VCPORA attend to represent your complaint. But I think when it comes to a person-to-person, subpoena, as opposed to subpoenaing through the entity, the hearing officers are likely going to want to hear about why before we take that action.
Well, that doesn't help us because the Administrative Proceedings Act and the adjudication process you're talking about can fail very quickly. When somebody just saying, that was my friend Joe Schmo that came to spend the weekend with us. Although Joe Schmo and all of his, wedding party came every weekend for a year or so ago. So my question is, everything kind of seems to hinge on the administrative hearing itself. And my understanding is that the evidence that's presented at an administrative hearing is pretty much very low-level evidence, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, this would be the initial.
You could submit hearsay if you had to, which would be a
Yeah.
photograph.
Right.
All right, that would be sufficient enough to find someone in violation. Photographs, knockbox, without being on a platform.
It will be the judgment of the hearing officer, and so if someone fails to attend, that may in fact
Not be enough.
If someone comes, it could be enough. For the most part, our hearing officers, though, when we have absent property owners, are going to assume it's an admission of guilt and levy the penalties.
That's still not what I'm driving at, but.
I'm sorry.
Well, actually, do you mind if I step in just for a moment? I think what you're getting at is what happens if, what's the evidentiary burden in a hearing like this? And it is a lower threshold because it's an administrative proceeding. And I think if you're experiencing problems with a neighbor, your first step is to give all of your evidence to, the city. And then, if it's significant enough, if it's important enough to you, make the time to go to the hearing and ask to be heard. Are you permitting citizen testimony?
Yes.
Yeah, so you go and you say, here's a log I've created. I tell my clients to create logs of the short-term rental activity. Here's a log I've created. And on this day, so-and-so happened. These people came up and they looked lost when they were in my building courtyard. They didn't know where they were going. They had suitcases with them and they opened the door through a lockbox and they were calling, the person, they were calling the unit owner. The unit owner showed up and, he said, hi, nice to meet you. And you tell all that to the hearing officer. I think that's probably going to tip the scale. I can't speak for the city, but but the more evidence that you can help, the more evidence that you can provide the city, the stronger the case it is, and the more likely that you're going to get the result that you want.
So if you could show like a trail of photographs of what is occurring in a neighborhood, would that be sufficient if you showed a pattern of this type?
The unit owner is going to say, well, those are all my friends, I'm entitled. So, it needs to be, I think it needs to be photographs plus something else. Now, again, I can't speak for the hearing officer of the city, but you need something to nudge it over past photographs, I think.
We have time for 2 more questions.
I'll let you pick.
You can. Gentlemen, et cetera.
In the brown.
Sorry,
If a property owner has a tenant who is doing these sublets, what is the normal short-term sublets? What is the normal procedure, or what will be the procedure on that? Because
For-
you all seem to be finding the property owner,
Yes,
not the actual person who's doing the Airbnb.
that is correct. And we'll be noticing the property owner, not the tenant.
Okay, then what the entitled to property owner, if he...
That's between the property owner and the tenant as a private relationship.
if I'm the property owner, I think that's the most effective way of doing it, first of all, because the property owner has all the skin in the game, and the tenant really has no exposure. So if I'm the property owner and I've got a lease with John Doe, and John Doe is, renting my condo, but he's, subleasing it out to all these people through Airbnb or Craigslist or whatever, then, my lease probably has some kind of provision in it. It's a standard provision in almost any lease. You can't use the premises to violate the law. You can't, use the condo as a meth lab or anything like that. And this falls in the same prohibition. So, that's your basis for eviction.
Yeah, so basically you go to the hearing,
Show me your eviction notice, show me documentation that you actually took it to court to have evicted, or whatever your process was, and we'll see if that stands up in front of the hearing officer.
But if you show the hearing officer you've got clean hands and this person's doing it and you're trying to correct the problem, I've appeared before other types of city, like code enforcement violation hearings, for instance. They're usually pretty, they'll work with you if, you show that you're trying to correct a problem.
Okay. So when City Council approved this short-term rental plan, they made it sound like it's revolutionary cooperative agreement between the platforms and the city. And this could be the model we spread. But other than collecting taxes, I'm not really hearing much more cooperation. You keep mentioning you have to subpoena the information.
That's right.
So
the big cool thing that I want to see as soon as we leave here, when I sit down with my smartphone, is that massive change to the Airbnb map where they delist all of these properties that show us that they are actually going above what is simply required by the law and actually helping us to be effective enforcers and take down listings that are in the French Quarter that should never be allowed to be posted, that don't have a positive response for license issuance from our system, where they take down postings that have no consent to share information with the city, so that those folks no longer list on Airbnb at all.
So there's a self-police element to the platform. You're expecting them to self-police this, or you have to request these removals?
I don't have to request these removals based on what they have agreed to with us. And this is the part that is not.
When somebody signs up for an Airbnb, they have to enter a permit number in order to get listed, correct?
That's right. Or if they're already on Airbnb, they had to have initiated an application through Airbnb or entered a valid permit number between when they started sending out notifications in March and today in order to stay up online.
Or
they'll remove them.
How does everybody know it's valid?
Because they have access to our entire database to check against.
What about the other companies?
Yeah.
The other companies have not yet gotten to a point where they can change their websites, but if we have success with this with Airbnb, we're going to use that as leverage to try to bring those companies on board so that they can have the benefit of having the reputation that short-term rental platforms are trying to gain across the country, which is not being, they don't want to be known as neighborhood destructors, they don't want to be known as under-the-table bad actors. They would like to have some kind of legitimacy to avoid the sort of negative press that other sharing economy platforms have undergone.
One more question. So outside of the French Quarter, when somebody has an Airbnb transaction, they're reporting to you the exact financial transaction, how many days were stayed?
They are not reporting it on a transaction level, they're reporting it on a summary level by address, both in the last 30 days and in the prior calendar year.
Okay.
So we
So
have to.
you know if 123 Main Street has a listing, they'll send you how many days it was sold.
Right.
So that when it hits the 90-day limit.
Then we automatically
So
say.
they have to cut it, they cut it off or you cut it off?
We have not hit that limit just yet. We should be approaching it very shortly, what with having gone into effect on April 1st for some things that have been booked every day since then. And our expectation is that we'll be able to send them a formatted CSV file that includes the link to their listing information
and simply request that they take it down. Should that turn out not to be the process, we are really great at using mail merge to generate umpteen subpoenas and get all the certified hearing officers that we can to just sign and sign and sign so that we can adjudicate.
And you expect them to cooperate with the subpoenas?
We expect that, yes.
Yep.
That was one of the sticking
I'm
points
reading
of
it,
the
thank you,
legislation.
I'm reading these,
Yeah, but our anticipation is that we can say, look, this whole list has clearly been booked at least 90 days already. They're all temporary licenses, take them down,
Okay.
and that they'll freeze those bookings. I do too.
I thank our two principal speakers. We've got a lot of very important information. I want to make sure you all understand that VCPORA, if you want to remain anonymous, we will help you with your complaint. I think it remains to be seen whether we can appear at the administrative hearing. We are there for our
Not for
members.
you, but we'll be there.
So I think Meg wants to close out with a few things. I would like to say that we are a membership organization, and we can only keep fighting if we have a strong membership base. So I would encourage anyone who's not a member to please become a member so we can help together preserve the French Quarter.
Thanks everybody for coming. I just wanted to invite you all through some wine that we have in the back, which would enable, and I don't know if our speakers are able to stay a little bit longer for some more informal discussion, or you could meet other people who share your concerns. But yes, as Rick said, we're a membership organization. We depend on community support to keep going. This has been a fight that we have been pointing of for about 20 years, and we want to be able to do that on this issue and other issues. So please help us. And thanks you all for coming.